Hey, good morning. Meteorologist Scott Pilier here with your Monday, June 14th, 2021 Atlantic Outlook and discussion. And what an active outlook we've got this morning. This is the latest as of 8 o'clock in the morning from the National Hurricane Center. And I posted on Facebook, I said, someone take the Crayolas away from the National Hurricane Center. This map looks a whole lot more like September or late August rather than the middle part of June. We've got not one, not two, but three areas of disturbed weather that we're monitoring for potential tropical development over the next 3 to 5 days. For my folks along the northern Gulf Coast that are watching this morning, though, there's only one disturbance that we're keeping an eye on for possible impacts this upcoming weekend in the form of some very heavy rainfall, possibly. So a whole lot more on that disturbance, Invest 92L, in the Gulf of Mexico here in just a moment. But briefly, let's talk about what else we've got going on in the basin because, again, this is kind of ramped up within the past 24 hours or so. We've got Invest 93L that is located on the eastern seaboard. That's this area of disturbed weather that we've got labeled in red. This now has a 70% chance of development within the next 3 to 5 days. Invest 93L over parts of the eastern seaboard. And, you know, that's a high probability. Next name on the list would be Bill with a B, followed by Claudette, and then Danny, if all of these systems were to develop. Now, the system in the far eastern Atlantic, briefly just to touch on it, vigorous tropical wave rolled off the coast of Africa last night and now is progressing south of the Cabo Verde Islands. And again, this looks to be something that does have a low-end chance, a 20% chance of probability to develop over the next 3 to 5 days. It appears unlikely that it will develop, but when you see this type of a vigorous tropical wave in the month of June, it's certainly something that kind of piques your interest because, again, typically we start to see the very active kind of monsoonal nature of the tropical wave train really get going into August and September. That's when we have those longer track systems that roll across the Atlantic. So definitely something that is interesting given today's date only being June 14th. Again, over closer towards home, we've got Invest 92L in the Gulf, which is what we're going to spend most of our time talking about in the Gulf of Mexico. So let's go ahead and break it down. First things first, I do want to show you Invest 93L located off the coastline of North Carolina. This is pretty well defined. And you know, what's interesting about this system, certainly you see the counterclockwise spin with it this morning. This started out as what we call a mesoscale convective system or a mesoscale convective vortex, basically an area of thunderstorms that rolled off of the U.S. continent. And now it's over the warm waters of the Gulf Stream. Water temperatures here are running above normal. And you can see we've got quite a bit of counterclockwise spin. And I think we have a pretty good probability of seeing a quick tropical system develop with this off the coast of the Carolinas. Again, other than bringing a little bit of an increased chop to parts of the eastern seaboard, no threat to land as it goes harmlessly out to sea. And that's definitely some good news. All right, let's talk about the system in the Gulf of Mexico. That has a 60% chance now of development, a medium probability of developing into a depression or tropical storm within the next 3 to 5 days. Looking at satellite this morning, there's definitely some things that you can see on this satellite image. Definitely a little bit of counterclockwise spin evident in the southern Gulf of Mexico. You can kind of see this cluster of, basically kind of looks like scrambled eggs over the Gulf of Mexico, the southern Bay of Campeche. A little bit of a low-level spin has developed. So we've got a broad area of low pressure in the southern part of the Bay of Campeche. Now, the telltale with this system is likely not going to be a wind impact for residents along the northern Gulf Coast, but a heavy rainfall threat late week, Friday through this upcoming Sunday, looks to bring a heavy rainfall potential as this moisture streams from the southern Gulf towards the northern Gulf. And I think anywhere between basically southeast Texas and the Florida Panhandle should be keeping a close eye on this for the possibility of a heavy rainfall threat somewhere in this area that I'm outlining in green. Exactly where the heaviest rain threat is going to develop, that's just a little bit unclear. Now, here's some good news about this system with regards to the strength that we expect this system to get. Right now, notice the lack of cloud cover over a large part of the western Gulf. See this? Relatively cloud-free. There's a big area of high pressure that extends all the way into the Four Corners. This area of high pressure is basically, clockwise flow around this, is doing a couple of things. First of all, it's keeping this system trapped in the southern part of the Gulf of Mexico. It's kind of just meandering in the southern Bay of Campeche, and it doesn't have anywhere to go because it can't lift north because of this blocking ridge of high pressure. Also, this blocking ridge is inducing some strong wind shear on the northern part of this system, kind of helping to ingest some dry air. And again, dry air, wind shear, we love to see it. That keeps these systems in check, and they can't really coalesce and organize in any quick fashion. So really, the big story with this is not going to be the strength. Now, could it possibly become a moderate tropical storm, even a stronger tropical storm? It's possible, but I think this is going to be a classic kind of lopsided June tropical system, whether it's a depression, weak, moderate tropical storm. By late week, Friday into Saturday, whatever does start to organize in this general region is going to start to get lifted north. The reason that I say that, and I'll show you in a second, we've got somewhat of a trough of low pressure over the eastern part. You know what? I've got to move my little camera lens here, and I'll zoom my face in. We've got somewhat of an extended trough, troughiness over the eastern Gulf, and eventually this high out west is going to weaken enough to the west that this system will start to feel the influence of this troughiness over the northern Gulf and get lifted north. So again, whether this becomes a depression, tropical storm, or maybe never develops at all, heavy rain is going to be the big storyline with this Friday and into the weekend as the moisture associated with this tropical disturbance lifts towards the northern part of the Gulf Coast. So let's talk about that. Again, it's got a 60% chance of developing into our next named storm. Whether Bill forms off the Carolinas, the next name after that would be Claudette. Here's a look at the GFS forecast model, and what I want to show you is that steering pattern one more time, and we'll show you this. By the time we get to Friday, we'll back this up a little bit. Right now, again, we've got a big ridge of high pressure that I'll outline here for you over towards the western United States. Excessive heat for parts of the Colorado Rockies. This high is responsible. You know what? I've got to move my camera lens just a little bit. Let's see. There we go. Now you can see it better. This high is keeping our area of disturbed weather trapped in the southern part of the Bay of Campeche. Notice that trough outlined in blue. That trough is going to be responsible for eventually creating enough weakness in the atmosphere that we should start to see the system lift north. Now, what's interesting about this setup is that right now, as I mentioned, we've got that northerly wind shear. I'll outline that in pink. Remember, high pressure to the north. We've got that northerly wind shear that is being inducted upon this system or induced on our tropical disturbance. But by the time we get to Thursday and into Friday, we get what we call a cutoff area of low pressure that kind of gets developed over parts of central Mexico. This cutoff low to the south and the west of the system is actually going to begin to induce a southwesterly wind shear component on our developing tropical depression or tropical storm. So notice the center of the system outlined here with the deeper shadings of blue. Whether this is a depression or weak tropical storm, because of the wind shear that we're going to have, that southwesterly wind shear, most of the rough weather the rain, the thunderstorms, and some gusty winds and increased choppy seas is going to be along and east of where the center is located. So let's say the center comes towards central Louisiana. That would bring most of the rough weather to southeast Louisiana and towards the Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida coast. So again, with this type of setup, a lopsided kind of disgruntled tropical storm potentially, you're more so looking for where that eastern quadrant, where you've got those feeder bands that can have some isolated tornado threat and locally heavy rain. That's what you're going to be paying attention to, not the wind threat. This is not something that is overly concerning to me with regards to wind potential, but the rain potential is what I'm going to be keeping an eye out for. Here's the latest outlook from the Weather Prediction Center. And again, this takes into the fact that the system would be coming on a general track towards somewhere from southeast Texas towards South Louisiana. And you can see these numbers, 5, 6, 7, maybe even 8 localized 8 to 10 inch rainfall amounts. This is what we're going to be paying attention for, is someone seeing high rainfall amounts within this region that I've got outlined here. Now again, if the center comes a little bit further towards the east, then that would take the heaviest rainfall further east, because again, if the system came like this, heaviest rain is going to be along and east of where the center comes on shore. So lots of details to be ironed out. Don't take these numbers for certainty. It's just guidance to kind of pinpoint the potential for heavy rainfall as we head towards this upcoming weekend. Time frame for us here in South Louisiana, we'll run through this really quickly. This is the European model, and I'll show you this. This is starting Friday evening. Friday evening, we've got, let's see, Friday evening, we've got somewhat of a disgruntled look of a tropical development in the western Gulf. Friday evening into Saturday morning, that low moves towards western Louisiana, but look where all the rain is. Again, all the rain focused on that eastern side. Here's the center of the system, close towards the Louisiana and Texas border, maybe a depression, maybe a minimal tropical storm, but look where all of that rain is, right over southeast Louisiana. So again, it's going to depend on where the system goes, how organized it is, but I think primary risk, heavy rainfall, localized 5, 10 plus inches of rain for someone along the northern Gulf Coast, but the question is exactly where? Do we see it further east? Do we see it a little bit further west? It's just going to depend on exactly where that system ends up going and of what caliber. But again, we'll continue to keep you updated. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube page and leave comments, questions, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Have a great rest of your Monday. Stay cool out there. For my folks in South Louisiana, we've got a heat advisory today, and it's going to be another hot one. I guess the only positive about rain later this week is that it'll keep the temperatures down a little bit this weekend. All right, y'all, have a great rest of your Monday, and I will see you guys tomorrow with another update.